What is going on, my dudes? Welcome to Work in Progress, the daily video series where I document my studio practice as a full-time gallery artist while showing you what it takes to get here and stay here along the way. Today we've got a very special two-part video installment. I've been working on this big boy. I had a good amount of footage stocked up, but this is for an upcoming exhibition with the wonderful Unit London, my representing gallery. And we have a show coming up in January with a bunch of images that look very similar to this big boy over here. And this was kind of the first, or really the second large one that I've done in this series. And as I've been working on it and developing the rest of the body of work, I've started to make some conceptual changes along the way. And one of the main conceptual changes had to do with the use of AI in the series. Now, in the beginning, I had sort of thought it was going to take center stage, and so some of the things that, some of the elements in the paintings were pushed a little bit more, but as I've started to continue down the path of the series, I've realized that there's a slightly different angle that we're going to approach and that I like a little bit better. And so that means that I need to come and make some adjustments to this piece, or just one specifically, which is the hands. Now, originally I found this photo. It was very low res, pretty much obliterated. It was like this big, and the hands were just even more degraded and far worse condition. And so what I did was I used Photoshop's generative fill, or their AI function, and I generated a brand new set of hands that were crispy and sharp, but obviously looked like shit, as AI hands tend to do. Now, what I've done, and I'm starting today, or what I've been working on today, is reworking the hands and just making them normal again. And I'm working from the degraded photo and just trying my best. But because I have all of the footage ready to go, I figured I could walk you guys through the original production of the painting, and then in part 2, show you guys a little bit more about what went into making these changes and why I chose to do it. So without further ado, let's get into the video and see what went into the production of this dude. Alrighty, here we are in the beautiful studio with the wind blowing and the sun setting just outside. This painting is 5 by 6 feet and it's oil on canvas. Now, with this one, I'm starting with the background. We know that in the smaller versions of the paintings, I've kind of been iffy about starting either with the front or starting with the background, but with this one, actually with large-scale paintings, I pretty decidedly enjoy starting with the background first. It just gives it everything context, and it just kind of makes it come together in a much more easy manner. Here, and just pretty much like all of the other ones, we've got the flying cat, and I'm going to be using a little bit of airbrush on this one, even though some of them I don't, but this one was a really perfect opportunity to do so. And so you can see how kind of even just knocking in some of the background, how much time it takes. And you can see like just the sun is absolutely gone now. And we're working late into the night, and we're having the best time doing it. So we started with the nice red, and we'll take a look here at the palette cam real quick just to show you kind of what's going on with colors. But I actually recorded them at different intervals, so I can't really use them overlapped the way I normally do, which is pretty unfortunate. But this is actually one of the first videos I recorded, so I'm not too mad about it, and I hope you are not either. Here we've got the shadows, and this was just such a fun painting, man, because I find that working with really low res degraded photos just, I don't know, dude, it makes so much of the painting process simpler because it makes a lot of decisions for you. And I mean that in terms of the way that colors blend together, the way that colors are blocked off. Things just tend to seem more painterly, if that makes sense. I always think of, you know, digital kind of degraded marks and stuff as kind of being the digital version of painterly. You know, and that's just it's a little thought I had that you can keep for now. And I really like the color scheme going on here. We've got this nice red, this green, and this yellow. And I'm pretty much working from dark to light. A lot of times I just add kind of like a base coat to things, just like I did with the dress. So there's not really a whole lot of modulation of value yet. It's just kind of more one solid color. With the legs, however, there is two tones there, the dark and then a nice wash for the light, which essentially is actually the middle value. And so here the next day we're here earlier in the morning and we've got our Kermit drinking bleach on the very left over there, which is actually a similar color scheme, and that was actually kind of a cool thing that just came together. And so here we're blocking in the cat again, and you can see that the shadows on the floor of the girl are a little bit more soft than the cat at this point, but we'll kind of take care of that a little bit later. And here I am just kind of pacing around as I tend to do. Mixing a little bit of color here, mixing away and mixing away. After this, now we're adding our second layer to the background, and it's just like we did with the small ones. We're working along outside of our borders and we're adding our second layer of paint. With the smaller ones, I prefer alla prima because I just like the way that the brush strokes show through, and even with this one, I left a lot of brushwork showing through. And what I did instead to sharpen those shadow lines is I used the second layer to cut into it, which I think was a very fun kind of little method that I don't use a whole lot, but it was good to employ in this painting. I really do like taking opportunities to try new stuff where I can, man. It's just, I don't know, it keeps things fresh and fun and exciting. I don't know if I went with 3 or 2 layers with this one. I feel like there's another layer coming. I mean, there's for sure another layer coming. So it was more like three layers on this one. Again, just mixing away. And here I'm now adding the second coat of green and using that also to cut in and block off our shadows, and then going back in with some darker values and punching in some of those darks. One of the kind of dances with this painting was I wanted to show some of that loose brushwork through the back, and I wanted to kind of layer up with some kind of more opaque layers, and here I am with the airbrush going in. So what I did was just kind of, it was a back and forth, a push and pull of really figuring out what needed to stay there, what needed to be kind of more washy, and what wanted to be more opaque. And here just the airbrush portion is just kind of the same as we've always done, where we're going in and we're brushing and then coming back in with our lighter value. Now, one of the things, you know, as much as I love my studio, one of the things that kind of drives me nuts is that there is a window facing where the sun, I guess, rises or sets. I'm not sure which. I think it's probably setting or maybe rising. And as the day progresses, that big block of light will just absolutely take over the painting, and then it just starts to cook me if I'm standing in the way. And that is not the funnest thing in the world, but you know, it's not a big deal. And that's kind of why I always have that big disgusting blanket on the on the window, is because I don't want to get cooked. Now we're starting to work some, you know, we're starting to build values again, and we're working some darks, and you see we put a whole just solid wash on the entire figure, and that was just kind of like a mid-tone, and now we're going back in with some darks. So right now it kind of looks a little bit funky, but you'll see it'll start to make a little more sense shortly. The hair with this one was very fun to work on. And just kind of, you know, again, like I was telling you, I just started to get cooked in that one spot, so I had to move my whole table to the other side. Fortunately, it's on wheels, so it's not a big deal. But, you know, yeah, getting cooked in the sun is not fun. I love those rhymes, it's a nice rhyme. But every time, man, every time I stepped in there, it was just like, I felt it. Just building value. And we're not doing a whole lot of blending either. We're just kind of putting stuff there and then leaving it there. And now I kind of finally got smart, and I decided to put the ugly blanket on the window. We've got a few more little detailed spots here on the head, and we're just plugging through, working away. But you can really start to see things coming together now. The way that the brushwork is kind of loose and dynamic. I did end up going back in with some more brushwork or some more opaque layers to kind of build up and block away some of that washiness, because as much as I like it, it just kind of felt a little incomplete at this point. but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. And here we're going in with the legs, and just kind of, it's more of like a second block. So we just built up and we did a whole solid color again, and then later I'm going to go back in with a third and fourth value with some lights and some reflective shadows and stuff like that. Now this is where I started to put in the original or the AI hands, and they were just crappy looking AI hands, but they were, necessary for what I thought I wanted to do. And here's a pretty good little glimpse of them close up. Fortunately, I had the foresight to start getting closer for detail shots like this, especially with a nice big painting. It's important to move it around. But here the hair is coming together and the tennis racket, and you can just really see how crappy those hands look, man. I mean, it was like part of the concept, so I wasn't worried about it. But, once we change everything, it makes more sense to just kind of make them nice and normal hands. But this was definitely a thicker, chonkier boy. Now I'm mixing away and working on the shoes. The shoes were kind of overexposed, so the values stay very light. Working on big paintings is just so much fun, man. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I can't wait to show you guys just how the rest of it looks. And, the part 2 of this is going to be really great. Just adding some final little shadows under the shoe. Well, not really final, but next shadows under the shoe. And that really just helps ground the figure on the ground. So we're gonna go ahead and stop it there. And tomorrow is, again, gonna be very exciting because I'm gonna take you through the rest of the completion of the painting, as well as the adjustments that I made to bring it back to where it is now. So for tonight, I'm gonna get back to work so I can record the rest of this so I can have it ready for tomorrow's video. I hope you guys have a good evening, and I appreciate your time and your attention.